So, good morning, everyone. It is time for another coffee conversation. So, I'm glad you're here. Hopefully, I'm hopeful that these talks are helpful. And today, I really hope that it becomes a helpful topic for someone. I struggled with the fact, um, not the fact, but I questioned whether or not I should have this conversation. And then I thought, well, maybe if someone had had this conversation or I'd heard it before, I would not have suffered as long as I suffered in seeking a resolution to my problem. Now, in saying that, just know that this conversation is going to be real talk. Um, so if you're not squeamish or anything like that, but we're going to talk about the body, a woman's body. And so if you have any issues with hearing that, just understand that that's what this is about. And I have no other recourse than to be raw. Um, I struggled for many years, and I think that I at least have the right to describe what I went through, the fact that it was traumatizing to me, and what it is meant to heal and to be on that journey, and how I see things differently now than when I saw them when I was going through them. Um, Oftentimes, I think we feel as though when we're going through those things, we don't have anyone to share them with, even though we have loved ones in our corner. If we're going through that process, we still feel kind of lonely. 2007. I recall very vividly waking up being in so much pain when my monthly cycle had began, and that was nothing new for me. I had grown up. I had issues with that. I was a young lady who started her cycle at the age of 10, and as the years grew on, I had a very hard menstrual cycle as a woman. When I say that, I mean that it was always heavy flow. There was often clotting, and there'd always been pain. And I'd always been the person, or been the child that, my parents made sure we went to the doctor and made sure everything was okay. And because I had endured that for all of my youth, because that was a long time, when I became an adult, I just thought that was the normal course of things. One of the things that they tried when I was younger that almost worked was, of course, they put you on birth control to see if that will help with the pain, with the flow, with the clotting. And it did, and then it didn't, and so it just became a normal process. It was just what it was. And so now I hit my 30s, and I still have this issue. However, it has grown significantly, the amount of pain that I would be in. And then all of a sudden, it started to affect other things. And so um, I began to have issues with bowel movements. Um, I would become nauseous and couldn't eat anything. But I equated all of that to just being a woman, having to endure, and having a menstrual cycle. And that's something to say because, you know, when you are a person who frequented the doctors, um, went to your OBGYN, you had all of your exams, and it was just normalized as just being a woman, things that we have to push through. And so now that I look back on that, I think about how I don't think that system fought for me the way I fight and advocate for people every day. And so I get to this point where I start to say to myself, something is not right. Something is definitely wrong here. There would be times where I would be in so much pain I could not walk. Um, and there would be this cycle where if I ate anything, it hurt me. It just hurt so bad that I would just stop eating. And you may say, well, what does eating have to do with your menstrual cycle? Well, what would happen is I would eat, and then everyone is supposed to have a bowel movement every day. Well, my body decided it did not want to do that anymore. And so I could go 3, 4 weeks without a bowel movement, a real bowel movement. And then when my body said, you know what, I need to get rid of this waste, it would take me hours. And what I mean by hours is the cramping. Um, it's almost like I could feel my bowels moving. And it would take hours before that I had a bowel movement. And then the bowel movement would not be a normal one. It would be full onset diarrhea. So if it started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it may not finish until 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would be exhausted. But then I would have to get up the next day and act like nothing's wrong and go to work and advocate for people, do a job, push through. That's what I had to do. And it was tiring. I just remember thinking, and I remember back one particular place I was working, um, we had court, and we had court almost every day. It's just the nature of the work that it was. And if I called out sick, they would say, "Oh, she's afraid to be in the courtroom." It wasn't that I was afraid to be in the courtroom. I couldn't be in the courtroom in pain, um, crouched over, or just running back and forth to the bathroom. If it wasn't full onset diarrhea, I was vomiting and had nausea. But once again, no one cared, and I had to push through that alone with my family by my side, because people in the world didn't understand it. They weren't going through it. I remember twice I left that job in an ambulance and had to go to the doctor. So essentially, I find a new OBGYN. We get, start digging into things, and I eventually end up having a cyst on an ovary. Um, when she looks in there, she says, "Oh, the tube, everything is just twisted because the cyst was so large," and so we had that removed. No issue. My husband and I then decided, well, maybe we had talked about having more children. We had one daughter together. I have a bonus daughter, and we wanted to add to our family. We had tried this previously before I began to have these issues, and my body would not hold another baby. We lost one child, and then we lost a set of twins. So we go back in. We say, listen, we think we've got the right doctor. Maybe she can help us navigate this. And so we began to try to get pregnant, and I could not get pregnant. And I remember thinking, well, my body said before that I couldn't hold any more babies. Maybe that's just it. And maybe we'll look at adopting. And although you can do that, you just never want to give up. When you want to make a family, or add to your family your very own. And so we kept trying. But while we were trying, at that time, I still was having this issue. Um, Nothing had changed in regards to how my body was reacting with the cycle, and then when it wasn't the cycle, everything else. So you still have your cycle every month, and I would look listen to women and they say, oh, my cycle is light, or it lasted 5 days, and here I am 2 weeks later and I still would have a cycle. Or, um, you know, oh, this is nothing. I don't even know when my cycle begins, but I know immediately when my cycle will begin, because before I had my cycle, the pain would be there. So my body was telling me that something was wrong. But once again, I was attributing that to, that is normal. That is what being a woman is for me. That is normal for me. So I'm pushing through all of this in the courtrooms and life. Our daughter is really active. She's going to gymnastics competitions, and we're, in the gymnastics club, and we're traveling everywhere. If I got sick on the road, it was just a normal course of, going through that, pick back up, just keep it going. So I just continued that cycle. Um, Having sex was extremely, extremely painful. But I just thought, hey, that's just what I have to go through, because that's just my body. So as it gets worse and worse, my OBGYN says, well, maybe, I understand what you're going through. We see now you have another cyst on your other ovary. We've got to take care of this, but that means you will no longer be able to have children. And at this point, I was tired. And I said, let's do it. If this is going to help, if this is going to stop all of this from happening, let's do this. And so we go in, and what was supposed to be a simple surgery, I end up in a 6-hour surgery. When everything is done and I wake up, my husband tells me the story. They could not find your organs because you had so much scar tissue that she had to bring in another general surgeon to actually locate the things that needed to be removed. I said, wait, what? Yes, endometriosis. And I said, yeah, but endometriosis is on the inside of the uterus. Well, not yours. Your endometriosis crept out and decided it was going to hide everything. It was almost like it had all encased my organs. So it took them over 6 hours to find that. And then my husband also told them to go ahead and take my uterus. So we had a partial hysterectomy. Now we have a full hysterectomy. It is gone. And I think, although I'm sad, I can't have any more children now, but the pain will be over, right? This will be it. This will clear this. I won't have any other issues. And so, we get through that healing process, we get back to our lives. And all of a sudden, you would have thought that none of that was taken out of my body. Every month, I would have a course. My cycle would come back. I'm in and out of the doctor. We're trying to figure out what's going on. Going to the emergency room. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Still having the issues with the bowel movements. Still unable to eat anything. There was a point in time when I had gone from a size 12 to a size 0, because I said, I don't want to eat. If I'm going to be in pain, I just want to eat. I was sick of broth. I was sick of soup. I was sick of crackers. They tell you to eat that. They tell you to toast some bread. I was sick of all of that stuff. I didn't want it anymore because I couldn't eat real food. We would go to a family holiday dinner or go eat with friends, and I would be just angry and sad at the same time that I couldn't eat what they were eating. I was afraid to eat. I just wanted to be able to live a normal life. and I couldn't do it. So we continue the course of, going. I still found it, I got to go to the gynecologist, got to figure out what this is. We go to the surgeon, and they say, okay, we're going to try one more thing. We're going to send you to get a scope. We just got to figure out what's going on, because at this point they thought maybe it was my intestines, that part of my body. So I go in, radiologist does this thing, and usually, whenever you go in for tests like that, they don't give you the results right then and there. They don't show you anything. They just say, okay, your doctor will be in touch with you, or you schedule to see your doctor on this day. They'll go through these results with you. I was lying on the table, and he said, the radiologist comes out, he says, I have to show you this. And I'm nervous. And he swings this monitor around. He says, do you know what that is? And I'm looking, it looks like my intestines, but it doesn't. I knew that's what it was. I could see some of it. He said, your intestines look like the balloon animals that the kids make when they're at parties. Had little knots in it. You could see it floating around. He said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I don't understand how you're able to make it day to day. He said, and this could kill you. If there's a rupture, if there's anything, you could be septic and you will die. You have to get to the doctor. I'm going to make sure that you get to your doctor. And we had all of that, but I guess he was just trying to stress how important it was for me to follow up with this, to get this taken care of. So I go to see my doctor, and lo and behold, endometriosis not only had robbed me of all of my female parts, it was continuing to grow and had wrapped itself around my intestines. And then the urethral tube that goes, from your kidney, your bladder to your kidney, it was wrapped around that. And now they needed to go in and fix all of that and try to remove more scar tissue that was obviously there. So you can't see scar tissue, like you can't see it on anything. You have to go inside of you to see it. But they could tell that my intestines looked like the balloon animals that, kids made at parties or had made for them at parties. So I go from a partial hysterectomy to a full hysterectomy to a colectomy. And what is that? They had to remove the portion of my large intestine. Once they removed that, I would have to wear a colostomy bag. The issue was they didn't know if I was going to have to wear that colostomy bag for the rest of my life, or just until that portion healed, they could go back in, tie everything up back together, and then we'd be, on our merry way. And at that point I said, I don't care. If I have to wear a colostomy bag for the rest of my life, I will do it, but at least I would be living. So we decide to, have the surgery. I go through that healing process. I wear the colostomy bag. I had so much support from family and friends. It was unbelievable. People who did not believe that I was sick early on when I was telling you guys that, they now understood for some reason why my words didn't do that to begin with. Was actually interesting, but now they understood, they believed. People were angry. Why didn't they catch this earlier? That just seems like it's crazy. Are you going? No, I'm not going to sue anybody. I'm good. I just want to heal and to live and to enjoy my life. I felt like I had missed out on so much. And it was interesting when I was wearing the colostomy bag, boy, I could eat, and I was just happy. I could eat food. I could be around food and not just sit and say, oh no, I can't, have any. I could really eat. And after I'm healed here and we can remove the colostomy bag, you know, so that I can get back to really healing. And I was going back around family and friends. That was the one thing they said to me. I'm just so glad you're better. I'm just so glad you can eat something. That thing, you do every day. Some of us do it 3 times a day. Some of us do it more than that, if we're blessed enough to be able to. But I'm just so glad that you can eat something. And I think about, that fight for me, that fight for my health, the same way I fight for my clients, against a system that wasn't designed to believe me as a woman, against a system. And I'm not talking about just the medical system, I'm talking about a system in general, that women should endure these certain things because they are women. You have a monthly cycle that is horrible for you. Oh well, hey, that's just what it is. That's just how it is to be a woman. When they can fix all these other things, um, and they look at you and say, well, that's just a part of your journey. And I also wonder, if I had not pushed, if anybody else would have spoken up for me sooner than I did. I think about it every day, how I had to believe my body. My body was telling me something was wrong. I remember going to emergency rooms, telling them something is not right. I would say it over and over again. Something is not right. Something is wrong. And I would just be given a pain medication or something to that effect and sent home. Just follow up with your doctor. That was very difficult. Now, when I started this, I told you it started for me in 2007, when it started getting real for me, right? My solution, my resolution didn't come until 2019. 2007 to 2019. That's a long time. That was traumatic for me. And I think what was more traumatic for me was not being able to know the answer, but that when I looked for grace from other people, I didn't get it. When I looked for grace from, in particular, the one place of employment, I didn't get it. Um, I was cast down upon, I was talked about. That is traumatic. But that version of you that, when you've been dismissed, when you had to push through pain and you felt like you were doing it alone, but you came out on the other side, and the version of you that exists today that is stronger, that is better because you walked through the fire. Now, I'm not saying that people should have to walk through fire to come out better or to be a better, none of that. But I am telling you, what I am saying is that that version of you exists because of that, not in spite of it. And the fact that you can continue to give other people grace when they didn't give it to you, that speaks volumes about who you are as a person. That you don't have to be like them. I know that there are a lot of women who go through this. I'm not the only one. Since that time, I've met women, talked to women. I've seen women younger than me who I don't give advice, but I do say, do you want to give life more than you want a quality of life all the time? Who suffer through so many things, whose bodies have had trauma, um, because of other people, and now their bodies suffer through so many things, and they still are trying to find that place and find an answer. All of that It's the same as what I went through, even though it was a medical issue. But remember, women tend to have all these other names. We're mom, we're aunt, we're sister, we're daughter. We can be wife or girlfriend, fiance. We have all these other names. We're our profession, whatever that is. The nurse that takes care of people, the lawyer that advocates for people. We could be the doctor that fixes everybody else. We could be the teacher that molds precious young minds. But we forget to advocate and take care of ourselves. And it's hard sometimes for us to find people who stand with us and beside us to do the same. I just wanted to share this journey with you, let you know that you're not alone, and to just encourage you to keep moving forward, because you deserve the best life that you can have, because you are worth it. Thanks for joining me today on today's coffee conversation. I'll see you next time.